the 20th of October 1866, members of Swinton Cricket Club decided to play rugby football on Saturday afternoons during the winter. This event, which took place at the old St Peter's schoolrooms, marks the beginning of Swinton Rugby Club and is recorded in the parish magazine of November 1866. The club joined the Rugby Football Union as Swinton and Pendlebury FC in 1871, but 6 years later reverted to plain Swinton. Playing just in and around Lancashire, they went 3 whole seasons undefeated between 1875 and 1878. This period culminated in a historic victory over the great Manchester club in 1878, which catapulted the club to greater heights. The club rose in stature through the 1880s, playing top clubs from Yorkshire, South Wales and elsewhere. Great players such as Joe Mills began their careers with the Lions. Joe played for the Lions for 14 years and fulfilled numerous roles, both in the service of the club and in the service of the town. Swinton first played on a field off Burying Lane, now called Station Road, not far from their first headquarters at the Bull's Head. In around 1873, they moved to a field at Stoneacre, near to their new HQ at the White Lion pub, and in doing so gained the famous Lions nickname, which remains to this day. Then on the 2nd of October 1886, the Lions moved a few yards to a much larger site, to a ground which became known as Chorley Road. Perhaps the greatest Lion of all time was Jim Valentine. He played for Swinton for 18 years, from 1883, making 485 appearances. Val, an England international, was also capped by Lancashire 62 times. His club record of 300 tries is unlikely to ever be beaten. He would be tragically killed by lightning in 1904. When the Northern Union, Rugby League, split from the Rugby Union in 1895, Swinton did not want to join. But a year later, for financial reasons, the Lions joined the breakaway movement. Success soon followed, and in 1900, Jim Valentine led the Lions to a 16-8 victory over Salford in the Challenge Cup final at Fallowfield. The early 1900s brought turbulent financial times for the Lions, and then in 1914 the Great War broke out. An astonishing 39 Lions volunteered for armed service. Sadly, no less than 13 players would lose their lives, along with a great many Swinton supporters. Investment from several local businessmen kick-started an incredible revival in the 1920s. After some near misses, the club's first Lancashire Cup was won in 1925 with a 15-11 victory over Wigan. In 1926 came a second Challenge Cup with victory over Oldham. Then in 1927, the Lions won their first ever Rugby League Championship. The greatest campaign in the club's history was season 1927-28. Under the captaincy of Hector Halsall, and thanks to the brilliance of Bryn Evans, Jack Evans and Brillo Rees, the Lions carried all before them. The Championship, the Challenge Cup, the Lancashire Cup, the Lancashire League and the Hospital Cup all belonged to Swinton. Following a rent dispute over their Chorley Road ground, the Lions moved across to a new ground off Station Road. The old stands were carried plank by plank and re-erected on the new site. Swinton defeated Wigan 9-3 before a crowd of 22,000 on the ground's opening day on the 2nd of March 1929. The stadium would go on to play host to many Challenge Cup semi-finals, Lancashire Cup finals and Ashes Test matches. Swinton themselves defeated Australia in 4 successive encounters between 1921 and 1937. More success followed. Captained by Bryn Evans, the Lions defeated Leeds in the 1931 Championship final and Warrington in the 1935 Championship final. Martin Hodgson was a Swinton giant of the 1930s, twice an Ashes tourist and the winner of 16 Great Britain caps. He's arguably the greatest second-row forward that has ever played the game. In 1940, Hodgson kicked a world record goal from over 77 yards. In 1940, the Lions won a Lancashire League and Cup double, but sadly the Second World War would claim the lives of 2 Swinton players, the Wigan-born friends Tommy Holland and Dick Green. During the war, the Station Road ground was taken over by the Home Guard and the Ministry of Works. Cliff Evans was appointed coach in 1954, and following patient team building, the Lions began to emerge from the shadows. In 1960-61, the Lions captured their first major post-war silverware, the Lancashire League. The team at this time included cult heroes such as standoff George Parkinson. In 1962-63, the Lions negotiated their last 18 games undefeated to win the championship, leaving St Helens in their wake. Master tactician and captain Albert Bland was key to Swinton's success. The back line of Ken Gowers, John Speed, Bob Fleet, Alan Buckley, Johnny Stopford, George Parkinson and Graham Williams were simply unstoppable. A sixth championship was won by the Lions the following season, 63-64. In 1966, Swinton had these 4 players chosen for the Ashes Tour of Australia and New Zealand. Dave Robinson, winner of 12 caps while a Swinton player, was a loose forward and a supreme playmaker. Johnny Stopford also won 12 caps, a winger and a scorer of a record 195 tries for the Lions. Alan Buckley won 7 caps, he was a tough centre and a prolific maker and scorer of tries. And Ken Gowers, fullback, winner of 14 GB caps and holds the club record of 601 appearances and 970 goals in a Swinton career spanning 19 years. 4 times in the 1960s, the Lions finished as runners-up in the Lancashire Cup final. They were also denied a place at Wembley by Wigan in the 1965 Challenge Cup final. But in 1969, the Lions beat Alex Murphy's Lee 11-2 in the Lancashire Cup final. A proud Bob Fleet was skipper. After a number of yo-yo years, Jim Crellin's Young Lions won the Second Division Championship in 1985. 2 years later, under the captaincy of Les Holliday, Swinton defeated Hunslet in the Division 2 Premiership final at Old Trafford. But sadly, 3 promotions in 6 years only resulted in immediate relegation each time. In May 1992, the famous Station Road ground was sold for housing. The club relocated to Gig Lane, the home of Bury FC. Supporters were given no opportunity to protest or save the ground, and 126 years of Swinton's heritage was in tatters. The move to Bury brought little success, but a hardcore of fans kept their faith. This relocation lasted for 10 years. The Lions then moved to Moor Lane, the home of Salford City FC, and in 2003 they reached the Challenge Cup quarter-finals. In 2004, Sedgley Park provided another home venue, and in 2006 the Lions lost a promotion playoff final to Sheffield Eagles at Warrington. The 2011 season was played at the Willows, where Swinton carried off the Championship 1 title. Then followed 3 seasons at Leigh Sports Village, but the move proved unpopular and the Lions were relegated back to the 3rd tier. The club hit the buffers in late 2014 and was rescued by a new board. At the beginning of the 2015 season, the Swinton board, coaching team and squad were committed to securing promotion back into the Championship. The Lions didn't disappoint and achieved 16 wins from the 22-game regular season, including some huge victories. John Duffy's team also reached the final of the iPro Sports Cup, where they were unfortunate to lose to a strong North Wales Crusaders team. The Lions qualified for the playoffs and reached the final by beating York at Sedgley Park, thanks to a golden point drop goal by Chris Atkin. Their opponents at Widnes would be Keighley, who Swinton had already beaten 4 times in the year. The Lions, roared on by the faithful support, emerged victorious after a crunching 80 minutes with another Atkin drop goal, giving a final score of 29-28. Swinton Lions were again back on the map and championship bound. The standard of the championship had risen sharply since Swinton's relegation in 2014, and there were now 4 full-time teams. In the early part of the season, victories were hard to come by as the Lions settled into their new home at Haywood Road in Sale. Once again, the Lions didn't disappoint and dug deep to secure some amazing victories against Batley, Sheffield and Halifax, which helped them maintain their position in the Championship with 1 game to spare. The decisive win over Halifax was played in a specially designed 150th anniversary kit, and the team played with a passion befitting of the past players and supporters whose names adorned the shirts. Supporters look forward to a bright future, and who knows, a return one day to great success in the higher echelons of rugby league. One thing's for sure, once you're a Lion, you're always a Lion.